Welcome to today's Pitch Deck Clinic, and today we're going to look at CubicLease. Now, what I love about Pitch Deck Clinic is we dive into a deck and we tease out the key proposition. Are the founders expressing it correctly, optimally? Are they enticing me as an investor? Are their revenue projections ambitious or reasonable? Let's crack on. So hello and welcome to today's Pitch Deck Clinic. I'm Anthony from SeedLegals, and today we're talking with CubicLease. Now, I've, like all of us, have looked for property at some point, and I found it ridiculous trying to book an appointment with the property agent, meet them somewhere, drive around with them, and then they'd stand around and go, nice views here and great kitchen. You're going, it's awful views, and the kitchen's tiny, and stop telling me nonsense. So, why do I need this agent to show me around? I wish there was a better way. So when I came across CubicLease and their deck, I thought, yes, other people have thought of this as well. So let me introduce you to the CubicLease team. James, over to you.
Hello, perfect. Yeah, so essentially for us, CubicLease is the game changer that everybody has been kind of waiting for and looking for. We understand that when a property is unoccupied, naturally it shouldn't take too much time. It shouldn't involve so much involvement to look at this property and make an offer in it and move in. So we have come up with the best way and seamless experience, which works both for estate agents and landlords, and also provide the ultimate convenience for prospective tenants and prospective viewers to actually turn up to the property, look at it in their own leisure, at their own time, and get to the nuts and bolts of what they really want. If they like it, make an offer. If not, look at another one, and just go through that transaction as quickly as possible.
Okay, all right, cool. And Tatiana, over to you. Hi.
Hi. Basically everything James has said, really. When he approached me with the idea last year, I thought, why hasn't anyone actually thought of this? Maybe people have, I don't know. But it's definitely ingenious and it would help a lot. Like, as a university student, I went through a lot of every year I'd move around. And it was actually quite difficult because every single time you'd have to, try and manage diaries with, the agent and then yourself. And then I was a mature student, so I was doing my PhD, and it's like I've got loads of work to do and trying to, sometimes it's cancelled, sometimes we move it. And so I'm sure if I'm going through that, if, I'm a mother of 3 or I've got so much going on, I'm juggling a lot more in life, I can only imagine how this would just be more of a seamless process for everyone across the board. Okay, and especially in a time of social distancing, it fits perfectly and it caters to the
time is perfect. So, as founders, you had a pain point, you had an idea, you've come up with a concept, you're looking to raise money, and now we're going to look at the deck, and every deck tells a story. Sometimes it's hard to build, sometimes it's hard to fund, sometimes it's hard to understand, and so let's see what secrets lie beyond. So let me turn on screen sharing. So you've got I think what's interesting is the very first slide. Of course, it's a nice slide, big and bold, shows property, shows what you do. Very nice. It shows on the very first page, SEIS approved. And the question when I saw that is, okay, why did you put it on the first page? And there are 2 reasons. One is because SEIS is the most important thing you're looking for. Maybe it's a bit overplaying it. On the flip side, because it's property, maybe property often doesn't qualify for SEIS, anything about rental and so on, but that's not it. So maybe you're showing it on the first page to go, even though this has got property related, it is SEIS. But I think that the SEIS is probably drawing attention to itself just a little bit too much on the front page, and I'd probably keep it later on for the investment page. Tiny thing, just happened to be the very first thing to spot. Okay, so now we get to the next page. So here you are trying to do quite a few things. Now your deck actually is only about 15 pages, so it's short and sweet, but what I like is always to have one slide with one theme. So let's explore what you've got going on here, because anytime you ask the user to do work, you've got other things to do and your eyes gloss over it. And you've got a powerful message, but you're trying to put several things in this one page. So the first thing is you've got the problem statement for agents and landlords. Great. Then you've got the problem statement for buyers. Then you've got the solution maybe for both. So I think you might want to do the split over maybe 3 pages. So imagine the first page had a picture of, and I'd probably start with the viewer because they probably the main part of your business. So there's, Tatiana looking for property. There's a picture of you with a mobile phone on your bicycle or whatever it might be, and you want to find a property, or maybe you're standing on the side of the road waiting for the agent with their branded car to come by or something like that, and you're going, I wish there was a better way. And that is then establishing empathy with the user. You've got a powerful image you can identify, and now you've got the problem space, and you've got, looking for thing, can't arrange a time, we've gone backwards and forwards 8 times to pick a viewing time, has pesky agents standing around telling you how amazing the place is. Next slide could be the agent's point of view. I'm driving around town all day with these schmucks trying to find places for them. They should just sort this themselves. So maybe establish that. Then the solution, I would probably, for example, show maybe a diagram, which is person, well, now we're going to see in a few minutes exactly what the solution is, but having read through the deck, imagine, person goes to the key place, picks up key, goes here, views, does that, goes back, puts it back, security, camera, whatever it might be, and now you can see at a glance what it is. So then maybe the story becomes a little clearer. And I know it's very savage when someone, put a lot of love into the deck and you've put all the ideas in and try to see, and then somebody goes, no, here's a different way of doing it. So I hope you'll bear with me. So I think let's keep going, and then I think we'll tease out where I think the key points are to address and what we might do on that. Okay, so you've spoken about, by the way, identity here, and then open banking, which I haven't yet quite seen how it all works. So you're probably telling me an answer where I didn't quite know the question yet, but let's keep going. So the next one, so typically at the point you show the market validation, this is the point where you've explained the proposition. So, the story of a pitch deck, broadly for me, and others have different views, is that it's like a 3-act drama. You're going to get me in with the proposition. I'm going to establish empathy with the characters. I'm going to want in, and then you're going to explain, the opportunity, and then you're going to explain, what you want at the end. I'm not sure you've quite explained what it is quite yet before you've gotten to, the opportunity part. But I think you come back to that in a few moments. So I think some of the chapters might shuffle around a bit more, but let's see how we go. So the market validation is interesting because what you're showing here is the number of available homes rather than perhaps the number of people looking for places. And the assumption you're making is that if I could view places more easily, then there would be fewer unoccupied places, which of course is a great sales point, but it might turn out the pain point is I can't afford the place or something else. So as an investor, of course, every time you see something, you're looking to challenge it or pick holes in it and so on. So I think the challenge here is to show both the size of the property market, but also the addressable market, that your product can fit within that. But I think, so then the why now. So you've got, the 3 things in the space broadly in the middle part of your deck, which is the market opportunity, the size you can get, maybe the timing, and also your competitors. And let's see how you do that. So you've got the why now. I think you could probably put why now on its own slide deck, because I think you've got a powerful piece with COVID just on its own. I know that there'll be endless numbers of slide decks now which have a COVID pandemic piece, but why not in this case? If you don't want to hang around and drive around in the agent's car, this would be actually really good timing. So maybe just the time is right now is just perfect as its own slide. So now we've got, we're still going on the property piece. So global property viewing expenditure. Okay, that's a big number. You've got, of the global piece, you're saying that it's 200 billion pounds a year. You've got the US at 60 and the UK at 40, so that's basically the US and Europe is half the global expenditure. So as an investor, I might ask the source of the info. It seems quite high, but believable. And I assume you've run the numbers on that. It might be useful, by the way, to put a little line at the bottom saying source something or other to avoid me having, as the investor, to ask those questions. Okay, so the next thing is the viewing experience. Okay, so I think now you can see that we've gone from what the problem and solution is to the market and then back to the solution. So shuffling the chapters around might actually be better. So the viewer experience. I like the concept. I think you've got it as a timeline, which is good. When you say the viewer, of course, it could be the view of the slide deck or the view of the property, so it's slightly ambiguous. When you say it's currently available on Android only, I'd probably remove the word only. You might just say available on Android, iOS coming soon or something like that, assuming it's coming soon. All right, so now you might also change the wording here to make it more of a story. So if you look at the items you've got at the bottom, you've got interest, book, verification, viewing, outcome. They're very sort of labels. Can we show, for example, there's a picture of Tatiana, and Tatiana, finds property on Zoopla, Rightmove, or whatever, then wants to book a property, then needs to verify details or asked to verify details, then heads off to view property, then loves property and charges, pays fee or something like that. So see if you can draw the viewer in rather than just, putting it as impersonal labels. But let's dive into a few things here. So I think the bit that as the investor jumped out for me, or maybe as the potential user. So when I'm viewing the property, so I'm going to ask you a few product questions here and stop talking for a moment. So when I'm viewing the property on Zoopla or wherever, do you integrate with them? Do I need to look at the address there and then run your app? How do I know which ones are supported by your app? So tell me a bit more about how that works.
Yeah, so when you go on Zoopla at the moment, because we're partnering with estate agents rather than directly with Zoopla, you would naturally go through the normal route of contacting the estate agent to say, I'm interested in the property. Then the estate agent would say to you, what's your phone number and your email address? I'm going to send you the details so you can go and view the property on your own. They would then send you a link, an invitation to the CubicLease app, which will just be a link which you click on. You then go to the app, sign up, and land right on that property page that you've inquired about.
Okay. All right. So essentially it's the agent who's sending you there. So I think the key first challenge for me is I'm browsing, but obviously only some properties are signed up with you. So how do I know which those are? But the agent would be sorting that problem. Okay, great. So then clearly the difficult part of the entire proposition that you have is around the security, which is, I'm going to let someone into my property, and you're solving that, it seems, in two ways. One is that it's for unoccupied properties, so there's nothing much to nick, and there's CCTV in the property, and you're doing some checks. So, by the way, I think not shown here, but maybe a really big, valuable piece for your proposition is once you've done some checks on your users, what can you also use that information for beyond the viewing? Can you expedite the property transaction afterwards? Can you use that data so that you've got a list of approved viewers, maybe for your next viewing? Can the list of approved security identified viewers do other things? So you might want to show the growth path for what you do, and maybe I'm jumping way ahead of myself and the aspiration, but I think the fact that you've got a set of approved, ID checked people is valuable both for the company and for someone going to the trouble of getting the ID check, because it's a bit of a hassle for them. How will they get more value from that afterwards? And maybe you create some marketplace downstream, and now you might then show that, very clearly the viewing is step one, but these are the other things that might be available afterwards, which then gets a lot more excitement from investors as well. Okay, so we won't dive too much into the viewing arrangement. I think you've got it fairly clear here. I'm not sure why, the outcome is a kind of a credit card. It looks a bit impersonal. You might show the outcome is the person in their apartment on the couch. Success, make it personal. Okay. So next one is 3 levels of security. So you might look to a different way of putting this, which is, again, you're showing the how, but you might focus on the what. So we make it completely secure, or, making sure that the right people view your flat, or whatever it might be. So how might you show it in terms of the outcome, not just what you do? So clearly at this point, the user with a view of your deck is going, oh my God, someone coming in my property. I guess it works for Airbnb, so it should work over here as well. And so now you're explaining how it works, the key safes and so on. Of course, I'm wondering where these key safes are. I assume you're going to show me on the next slide. We'll get there. I think this could probably, just a thought, a random thought, this might be done better by a few slides ago. I suggested showing the user journey. The user views something, goes there, picks up key, goes there, goes there. You might use the same diagram and now show where the security checks are. So, on the app, first level verification, pick up key, second level, in the apartment, CCTV, third level. And then it sort of comes to life that you've got the same pattern through the deck, which I think then lets you hook things as the viewer of the deck onto something that you now are seeing this 3D world view of, because that's really what the deck is. As you're seeing each slide, you're making this world model of the proposition. And the more you can help the person by reinforcing that, I think better. Okay, so
I just thought I wanted to just jump in on that. I heard you mention CCTV in the apartment a number of times. We actually are not putting any CCTV in the apartment.
So it's the key safe holders, not the apartment. Okay, got it. Good point. So I had missed that. I thought CCTV in the apartment, maybe because that's what I would have wanted. So so I'd read that. Okay, and actually, you see, just having said that, had you done the diagram showing the different locations and the CCTV was there, then it would have been super obvious for me rather than me making that mistake. Okay, all right, so next one. So now the USP, how are you different to others? And I think the USP piece, it's not the sexiest of titles. I think it fits into, well, this isn't so much a USP. This is really the key advantages, maybe, as opposed to the differentiator. So this might be, why CubicLease is the way to go. I think that some of these are desires, and some of these, in a sense, are just operational pain points. So, gain property 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. maybe could be, view at your leisure anytime, during the day. So maybe show these as the key benefits, because they're not really unique selling points compared to others. They're really the benefits. Okay, so let's now look at your competitors. So you've got, I think, quite a complicated slide here. And let's see how we can maybe make this a little bit more compelling, possibly. So typically competitor slides, for better or worse, I've never yet formed a view on that. It's a quadrant. One of them might be price and the other one quality, or one of them might be, ease of use or something. Here you've got essentially one quadrant with viewings, and referencing. Maybe it's the same logically. It's just you could have put it, below and above the fold, so to speak. I'm not quite sure what viewings and referencing are. I stared at this for a while, and I figured that viewing is all about, being able to view things, and the other one is all about the security checks on people, and you're combining the two. I'm not sure if that's sort of the way of putting the market, but maybe it's just fine. I think you might make the axes a bit easier. On the left, you've got a bubble in blue and a bubble in white, but then all the bubbles on in the slide on the chart are in white. So I'm not sure what viewing clock providers are. Was that intentional that you were going to put that on the slide on the matrix, or but they're just not there yet?
So you've got a company like Viewbar. Viewbar is just an aggregation of viewing clerks. They essentially have contractors that they contract out to conduct viewing for properties across the country.
Should that then be in blue? Is that the goal? Because you showed it in blue on the left.
I think with what you just said now, it probably should be in blue.
Okay. All right. Cool. So then that's blue. All right. Great. Now, the other thing, by the way, is you don't put your company's name next to your logo. So when I looked at this, I was going, okay, who's the guy with the blue cube? Oh, that must be you guys. So I would put your logo over there. So yes, I think also, of course, usually, on these things, they're carefully construed so that your company sticks out as being very different to anyone else's. In this case, you put Rentley quite close to yours, but then you've got your work cut out to show how they're different. Of course, if they're a big company and they're in a different area, that either means there's a big opportunity, or at some point they're going to enter your area, and then you've got your work cut out. But so I think. I think this is a useful chart for showing the competitors. I think when I looked at it, you made me work maybe a little harder than I wanted to try and get value from that and see if we can make that a bit easier. Okay, so we now go to revenue streams. And this one, I think, you've got, I think, also more happening on one page, or maybe the way it's portrayed is a bit hard. So the first one is you haven't quite shown, so you're saying revenue streams, but then you're showing things two ways and one way. I would think if there are multiple revenue streams, the first one might be labeled, from users or from the app, and the second one might be saying from data or something. So if you can put a big label on it, so this is the first one is a fee on offer, and the second one is some licensing stream or something like that. So I think you might also then show some order of magnitude that's 10% or 1% or £50 or whatever it might be, so that I can quickly see at a glance what it is. So I think this one is, when you're saying it, the label of our revenue stream, I should, as the investor, have the information here that were I to guess the number of users or viewings or whatever it is, I can quickly get an estimate of what your revenue might be, and then multiply it out myself to work out the valuation and hence my investment and so on from that. And so I'd be looking for a bit more info here. Okay, so now comes your eye-watering revenue projections. So some decks I see, they go, after 3 years, we're going to make £1 million a year or something like that. So, okay, that's great. It's probably achievable, but, I'm not super excited as the investor. Here you're saying by 2024, you're doing £1 billion a year in revenue. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, you're reading that right.
All right. So that makes you like a FTSE 500 company, if not better. So I think that's a big challenge. And so I love a ballsy proposition, but then you've got your work cut out to justify it. So typically a company's growth might be 4x year on year in the early stages, decreasing to 3 and then, maybe 2. I think the unicorn one is something like triple, double, or something like that. And then you end up with like 100x and maybe there's one more doubling involved. And then you get a unicorn company here. You're going 4x. So in year 3, you're going from, it looks like maybe 20x or something like that revenue increase. So that is a big ask, and you're 4x afterwards. So, and you've said that the UK opportunity is 20 billion a year. So you're doing $1 billion, but the 20 billion might be the cost to agents. And then the question is, if you're saving the money, it's like Skype, or maybe like SeedLegals, people spend millions or save millions instead of going to a law firm, but our revenue might be a lot less than that. So I think, so 2 things. One is you've got your work cut out to justify the revenue projection. And, I'm sure you'll get that feedback from investors. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's awesome to show that, but you will for sure be challenged on that. And the second thing is you've got 2 things happening on this slide deck. One of them is the numbers, and the other one is sort of this invert pyramid, where the pyramid is showing, for some reason, it kind of goes downwards. But the blue is the biggest at the bottom, but then the pyramid has got the blue is the biggest at the top. So you're showing me, with a bit of work, that most of your revenue is from viewing, some from home services, which I'm not sure what they are, so it might be good to explain it. And then you're also selling some insurance as well. Okay, so I think had the last slide shown how much you're going to earn from each viewing, for example, or from the services or others, then I, as the investor, might have the information that would let me buy into this or not. So if you're showing that you're getting £200 a viewing, then I can do the numbers and work out how many viewings. If it's £20 a viewing, I'll run the numbers and go, whatever that might be. So any thoughts from you on this slide? Sell me on the value, the revenue.
Yeah, so basically the viewing aspect, essentially at the moment, we've since we put this slide together, I picked up the most recent slide and I just sent it to you guys, so just to help it work from that. The amount that we're going to be charging landlords is £99. That's essentially on success when the person moves in. And then for, subscription clients like estate agents, we're going to charge them a monthly revenue model, which starts at £850. That effectively reduces their cost by 75%. Now, that is the viewing, the blue element there. You asked about the home services and the yellow element. That represents revenue from broadband and energy, which equate to £50 per property. So it's effectively when a person makes an offer on a property, the next thing naturally people do is look for electricity and broadband and gas and electric and broadband. Now, because you've gathered that information, the property they're moving into, their name and everything else, we can now streamline the next thing that you're looking for within the app, that you can just click a button and it's done.
Okay, and I think that, by the way, that's brilliant. I think there's some people doing some of the servicing piece, so you're in their territory, but if you have got the user or the viewer earlier on and verified their details, you're beautifully placed for that. Okay, so now you've given me £99 per viewing, and from the graph, after several years, you're showing essentially £800 million in viewing revenue, which means you're doing 8 million viewings a year to get to that number.
It's 8 million, so it's £99 per property.
Yes.
So it's unlimited viewings. Right.
No, sorry, I mean per successful transaction. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's 8 million successful transactions a year.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are quite a few people in the UK move around. It seems to me you're getting quite a high market share from that. So again, as the investor, I would be looking to challenge that. Yeah. So, not yours specifically, but always challenge the numbers. Yeah. So be ready to show me why you'll be doing, 8 million property rentals through the app. And I'd be interested in how many there are in total.
Yeah, it wouldn't be just from the UK. The reason why you've got from 2022 to 2023 is because we'll be leaving the UK and expanding into Germany, which is where the next big market is. For our services, and the number of properties completely changes from the UK, where you've got about 4.8 million properties, which are typically on the private rented sector, to Germany, where you're automatically looking at 26 million.
Okay, so that is awesome. So I think what you might then want to do is add it to the graph, launch in Germany, launch in wherever, so that as the investor looking at it, if I'm looking at it without you on the call, then I'm going to go, oh, that explains the big jump, right? So very nice. So now we've got to the heart of turning this slide into not just an aspiration, but a justified aspiration. Okay, cool. So now we come to the roadmap. Well, I think roadmap is great. Sometimes you might show it as a sort of a chart that goes up with time instead of just flat, so it looks like things are growing. There's quite a lot happening here. So you've got a combination of products, approvals, countries, and funding all put together. So you're making me work quite hard to unpick that. And it might be better to show this in some different ways. So maybe you could have several streams here, maybe picked out in different colors, which is, countries, UK, Germany, wherever it might be. Funding, I don't think the funding really needs to go on this, because the funding is not a goal in itself. Even though I'm at SeedLegals, my goal is never to raise funding. My goal is to grow the business, and funding is a way to do that. So I would probably take funding out of this. And also, if you're showing the profits that you're making, then you may not need those Series B and so on. So that would also simplify it. And you might then have the funding on a separate page. I'm never a fan, by the way, of showing more than the next round, because you typically simply don't know what it would be. And you want to hit your product milestones, but I don't think, hitting a Series A milestone is a goal in itself. You do your Series A when you need the money for Series A and not before. So, all right, so I think this one could really be simplified if it was put in a few bands. Because again, you can hear from me throughout, don't make me work as the reader of the deck, and the more you can get there, the easier it is. Okay, so next slide, user feedback. So I I love the concept of the validation, and that gets to the end bit of the story, which is you've described what it is, you described the market and the opportunity, and now how far are you going along that? The roadmap was the intro to that, but I think what you've lost here on the user story was pictures of people. So it comes across as very impersonal, but imagine you had photos of the users. If you don't have their photos, or they didn't want to show their photos, then one thing you can do is if you do a Google search for AI-generated photos or pictures, then you can find some AI ones. You might put in little letters, not real users, or maybe leave it. No one's really going to care. Or put, somebody's name, not their real name or something like that, or just leave it. And then it would come to life with like, oh, that's awesome. These people they loved it, right? I mean, if you can find real people, it's so much better, because otherwise this just looks like, you can imagine the difference between seeing the slide as is and seeing a smiling face going, yeah, that was awesome. I found my my apartment, on my own time, or whatever it was. Okay. So let us now get to the next slide. So opportunity. Okay, so I think you've got a slight change of graphic direction here that, to me, I always look for every element on the page, and they all have meaning. So now your raising is a strange swirl with things coming out of it. I think it sort of detracts. So I think there are a couple of things. Firstly, raising up to 150K. I think maybe focus on a fixed number. I mean, you may choose to stop beforehand, but I think, raising 150K is short and sweet. The next thing is you've mentioned a post-money valuation. Now, I always suggest a pre-money valuation. And the reason is that the post-money valuation is simply the pre-money plus the amount that you're raising. But if you raise more or less, the pre-money valuation, of course, that might change if you negotiate with investors, but let's assume it's the same. If you were to raise 100K, your post-money valuation would be 1.75 million. If you went on to raise 200K, your post-money would be 1.85 million. Your pre is always still 1.65 million. So you don't like to be chasing a moving target. And as you're raising more or less, if you tell your investors a post-money, that keeps changing. It's like, hey, we're now raising 1.75 post. Like, dude, you told me 1.8. Why did you change? No, it's not changed. It's still the same pre-money. It's just the post has changed. So for that reason, my recommendation is the pre. The other thing is, as a slight thing, is that investors would probably find it more attractive for a lower valuation because they see themselves getting more equity. So since the pre is the lower number, you may be better off anyway showing, the pre. Can I ask why you picked post-money valuation?
It was just, I think I had a conversation with a private equity guy who said, let's put the post-money valuation on there. So
all right. So I think I totally don't know the private equity world. Maybe in private equity world it makes sense because you're selling a fixed amount or there's a purchase price. It's probably because it's in a PE world. It's a purchase price that you're negotiating rather than selling a fraction of a thing. So, all right. So scale within London, increase runway. Okay, so I think two things are happening on the slide. One of them is you're saying how much you want to raise, and the second one is you're saying what that money is buying. What you're not doing here is saying, which you've sort of put on the other slide, which is then there's going to be a Series A and Series B. So this might be the separate roadmap for investment. So the last one was the roadmap for products. Imagine here, 2020 is my angel round 150K SEIS. Then there's my Series A, then there's my Series B, something like that, if you want to do that. By the way, I think you went from this is your seed round direct to Series A, which is great. You as a practical matter may well find yourself raising 500 to 700K before you do a Series A round, and you might call that a seed round. I mean, these are just names for things, right? So, the more typical thing is 150K, then maybe 500 to 700K, then a 1.5 million or so, and then some amount after that. But there's no fixed pattern. Whatever makes sense, where you're up to. Okay, so we now get to the team. I think the team has jumped to a different color scheme to the rest. I think I was probably, James, going to look for your picture and so on the left of the slide rather than the right, for no really good reason, but maybe yes. I think the black on blue is a little hard to read, and I'd probably just stylistically, you can totally ignore that. Maybe put the subtext a little bit smaller so the key roles and names jump out a bit more. Okay, then you've got some advisors, which is nice, but you've left me hanging at the end of the story. I would have expected now, contact us, raising, here's my details. So you've left out the all-important, what do I do next? So I think the ordering of the last slides is the team, the advisors if you think it's valuable, and then the last slide is now raising 150K, offering SEIS, contact James at CubicLease, thank you. And now my story comes to a nice end, and I know to hit my email and ping you for more. So with that in mind, I'm going to stop sharing. And so that was me doing all the talking. What thoughts, what questions? Was that helpful?
It was very, very helpful. I think we've not had a page-by-page review of the deck since we made it. Arguably, since we've made that deck and now, things have changed. We've already hit our roadmap. We've done iOS. It's launched. We're launching next week, Monday. Yeah. The amount we're raising is completely different because we've now got a completely different team, a much more experienced team. A lot of things has changed since the deck I sent to you. But if I was to turn around and say I'm going to send that deck out, all I would have done is update the team and update them on what we're looking for. So arguably, yes, that was very helpful, very, 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 very detailed.
Okay, it's quite savage because you read all these articles on how to make the perfect deck. Here's Airbnb's deck, it's all crap, and because I think they're modified retrospectively. But it's sometimes quite savage when someone goes through your deck slide by slide. And I think for me that's the value of Pitch Deck Clinic, the delta between these aspirational things and then somebody actually looking at the things you've written. And I'm hoping a founder seeing this would then look through effectively proxying my eyes or the investor's eyes at their own deck, challenging every slide that they've made.
Yeah, that was really helpful.
All right.
Very, very helpful, yeah.
Amazing, thank you. So I love the concept. If any investor is interested in the property segment, this looks amazing. It's a key pain point that I've had, and let's see how we can help you get to the next step on your round. Thank you.